Smarfield. I am from the beautiful country of Belize. How many of you know Belize? We have a lot of you guys come there for tourism purpose, and now I'm here with you. I am currently studying at the College of Health Evangelism, and I'm also getting some training as a lifestyle counselor at the Wildwood Lifestyle Center and Hospital. I'll be your tour guide today, so again I say welcome. You have come to view what is called the Mosaic Sanctuary. It is an actual full-scale model of what is recorded in the Bible. Everything that you will see in this store is exactly what was written and given by God to the people of Israel. First of all, let me introduce the Mosaic Sanctuary. Okay, over there you notice that you had three divisions of the sanctuary itself, or the whole courtyard of the sanctuary. To the top we had what was called the outer courts on my right hand side, and that had two furnitures or two different articles. First you had what was called the altar of sacrifice, where they did the sacrificial offering, and after that we also had what was called the laver. Then you had the tabernacle. Either you can see it there, you can see it in a tree model view here. This had two compartments. The first one was called the holy place, and it was made up of three furnitures in it. To the north side we had what was called the seven golden candlestick, and opposite that we had what was called the table of showbread. Then in front of the veil, in front of the most holy place, we had one altar, and that altar was called the altar of incense. And you're going to notice that all of these names speak for themselves. Then also we have another compartment in the tabernacle. It was the last part. It was called the most holy place, and this contained one article. This was called the Ark of the Covenant, or the Ark of the Testament. Now throughout this tour, there are three things I will be talking about to you. One, we are going to be talking about the history. What are we going to be talking about? We want to find out how the Israelites fulfilled this from a historical view. But also, you might know by now that Christ is also seen throughout the sanctuary. So we want to trace his footprint throughout this tour. So we're going to look at the footprints of Christ. What will we be looking at? Oh, this is a lively audience. I will not go to sleep. Thank you. Alright? And then also, we are going to see how it applies to you and I. Now, I'm going to be giving you a historical overview from creation to the book of Revelation of the different sanctuaries that are in the Bible. Now, one may ask, why a sanctuary? Come with me as we go back to when God created this earth. Everything was perfect, right? God said he made this earth in how many days? 6 days, right? And of course, he rested on the 7th. Very good. But when he made this on the 6th day, the last thing he made was who? Mankind. And when he looked at them, he says, it was what? Very good. And then they started their relationship and they had their family. But you know what happened, right? God told them not to break the law, right? God told them, thou shalt not eat of that, or else thou will what? Surely die. You think they obey? How many of you have children? How many of you tell them, don't touch that? Maybe we have to tell them, touch it. It seems that we just seem to be disobedient as human beings. Well, we got this inherited genes from our forefathers. They actually disobey their God, their father. They touch and eat, and now truly people are dying. And so, God forbid, this caused sin in the human race. And you know what the Bible says sin does? Who know what sin does with us and God? Excellent, ma'am. Isaiah 59 verse 2 says that sin separates us from God. Sin is like this barrier here. I can't see those people out there anymore. This is what sin does. It puts a barrier between God and the people. But you know, God loved humanity. He had a plan, and so this whole sanctuary system was set up even before man sinned. I don't know how many of you have a plan B. Maybe you're not sure if it's going to rain, but you take an umbrella just in case it rains. Well, this was the kind of plan God had. He says, I'm going to make man in my image, but I'm going to give them a thing called free choice. Because God didn't make robots. He made people who can choose. And with choice, you can make mistakes. And so God says, just in case these people don't obey me, I will have a plan B for them. It was called the plan of redemption. You read about this in the book of Revelation 13:8. It says, from the very foundation of this earth, God had a lamb who was going to be slain. Because we are going to find out that Christ is the center of the sanctuary. Now, in the Bible, year in, year out, there were the killing of lambs. It started in the Garden of Eden, incidentally, when the first animal was killed, and God overlaid Adam and Eve with the coat. But all through at Mount Moriah, you remember, right, when Isaac was going to be killed, and Isaac says, I have seen the wood, I have seen the fire, but where is the lamb? You see, for 4,000 years, the Jewish people have been asking that question. Where is the Lamb? Because these people knew that this was just a symbol of the true Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world, that was going to come to fulfill it. But this is not even the original, you know. If you read the book of Exodus 25 verses 8 and 9, this is what it says. He said, let them build me a sanctuary that I may what? Dwell among them. Then he says something interesting, Moses said, and let it be after the pattern of the things that I will show you in the heavenly places. You see, this is just a copy of the original. It's like if I would take this picture to one of your photocopying place and I tell them to make a miniature replica or copy of it, this would be the original. The 8 by 11 that they would give me would be the copy. This is just a copy. So this is much smaller than the one in heaven, incidentally, but you can still see the glorious thing expressed in it. And we are going to look at this sanctuary as we go through, and we are going to compare it with the heavenly sanctuary. Now, the original also is made mention in Exodus 15 and verse 17. As a matter of fact, throughout the Bible, Hebrews 8, 1 and 2, the book of Revelation, 18 of the 22 chapters, speaks about heavenly sanctuary. And this is apart from the whole heaven itself, just the sanctuary. Alright? But we do have the Mosaic sanctuary that was built sometime around that time, 1400 BC. We are told that it took 6 months to build, and the people gave generously into its building. This existed for some 487 years. So just the same way we have this model have been taken from city to city and from state to state, they traveled through the wilderness year in, year out with the sanctuary. Now what is interesting is the time came when we had the kings. Who was the first king of Israel? Man, I also have a wonderful religious group. I won't have any problem with this story, right? We had Saul followed by which other king? David. And the Bible said that David was a what? Man after God's own heart, right? And he loved the Lord, and he said, oh man, I live in this awesome palace, and look at what God is dwelling in. So what did he wanted to do? He wanted to build God a sanctuary. But the Bible said that Nathan the prophet came to tell him that, you know what, God says it's a good plan, it's a good idea, but your hands have killed many people, you have blood in your hand, but I let your son build it. So this is where we come to know what is called the Solomonic Temple, built somewhere there around 950 BC. And so we are told that David got all the dimension, he got all the material. We are told that this temple was 3 times as glorious in terms of length, width, and height. We are told that it was more magnificent. We are told that the Queen of Sheba, everybody came to see this sanctuary. If it was in this time, President Bush, everybody would come to see. It was such an amazing thing. Alright, it impressed the whole world back then. We are told that on the day of dedication, God's presence came down from the heaven in Chronicles and in Kings, and it says it lit a fire on the altar of sacrifice. As a matter of fact, it happened in both of these sanctuaries, and we are told that it was a glorious day. Then to add to that, the very presence of God sit in the most holy place, we are told, and it lit up this place. And God protected the people just the same way He did in the time of Israel when they were going through the wilderness. But you know, like everything else, all good things must come to an end. And so while they were enjoying it, you know what? They took it for granted. You know, sometimes we take people for granted, and then until we miss them, then we understand what we had. And this is what happened. Eventually, the very presence of God left this place. And you know what happened? Eventually, God gave them up into judgment. And we are told that King Nebuchadnezzar was the one who took them captive. They destroyed Jerusalem. They broke down the temple. And in Daniel 1:2 we read, Daniel 1:2 says, when Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, was reigning, King Nebuchadnezzar and his people overtook the people of Israel. This is where you have Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. All of them, they took in many of the golden vessels and they captured them for 70 years in Babylon. Now during those 70 years, this is where we have Ezekiel, a prophet priest, came on the scene. In their captivity, he got a vision around 570 BC. And he saw this outstanding, marvelous, amazing, most glorious temple, my friend. It was going to be the king of the day. It is believed that it had a mile in dimension for the inner walls. It had a 5 miles dimension around it. It is believed that it was going to have river flowing all through it to the way of to the place of the Red Sea, to the Dead Sea. Now, this was never built. You read about this in the book of Ezekiel chapter 40 all the way to Ezekiel 48. It was never believed, and some believed because of unbelief. So the people settled for a different temple. It was called the Zerubbabel temple, built somewhere around 520 BC. But you know, unlike that temple, those temples, the Spirit of God never came down, the fire of God never came down. There was no light in this temple, but one day a greater light came in. You know who it was, right? It was Jesus. This is what they also call Herod's temple, because Herod was the king at the time when it existed. And Jesus made a comment in here that shows that he too was a great temple. He says, destroy this temple in 3 days and I will rebuild it. And you read this in the book of John chapter 2 verses 19 to 21. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes, they were wondering, we took 46 years to just renovate this. You're going to build it in 3 days' time? But who was Christ referring to? Himself. And on that glorious Good Friday, he went on Calvary's cross, right? 3 days after, he resurrected that beautiful Sunday morning, showing that he was the greatest temple that ever lived. But guess what? Do you know that you and I also are to be temples? 1 Corinthians 6:19, 1 Corinthians 3:16, 2 Corinthians tells us that we are the temple of God. So listen to me as I'm concluding this presentation. Whatever God does in this first sanctuary, He also wants to do in all the sanctuary, including you and I. As a matter of fact, as a church, we also are called a temple, and Christ is the chief cornerstone. And the last temple we read about in the Bible is Revelation 21, verse 22. It tells us that there is the holy Jerusalem, which is different than the heavenly sanctuary. It's where you and I, by God's grace, will be one day. He says, in that there was no light, because the Son of Righteousness is a light. There is no sea. It also says that there is no temple. Why? It says because the Father and the Lamb are the temple thereof. So my friends, this is the overview and introduction of a wonderful tour. I hope you enjoyed. Why don't you go this way now, as the man will direct you as we go now into the first part.